I'm here with Sophia Hamilton, co-founder and entrepreneur of Sook. Can you tell me about Sook? What is it and how did it kind of come about?
Yeah, so Souk ultimately aims to be your single source of trust for partnerships. And the way we see that is through three key pillars. You have finding the best quality partners for your business, keeping them active, keeping them sending you leads and you sending them leads, and also giving you that layer of visibility around, okay, what's the value that I am sending to someone else and how can I use that to negotiate, additional deal flow for our own business. And then finally, that sort of management pillar of like managing all the contracts that you have to send out, managing the payments flow so that you're not, paying your partners late or risking getting sued by them for any particular reason. And ultimately what we've built so far, which is what we think, we could first really 10x value for our users with, is this really, really cool piece of tech that allows you to find the best possible partners through natural language. So as opposed to using something like LinkedIn, where it's very prescriptive and you're like filtering by headcount and region and like role, you can just type in natural language and say, look, I'm looking for fintech managers in London who like running and that we should invite to our 10K next month, which means that not only have you found the right people, but you've also already like found your personalization, because you don't have to go, oh, well, like, how am I going to reach out? How am I going to, build a relationship with this person from a cold start? You already know something about them that will help you bridge that gap. So yeah, that's what Souk does. And in terms of how we've got here, it's a bit of a longer story.
Mhm.
So okay, how we got here. Back in April, I joined an accelerator called Antler, which is a sort of VC-backed accelerator program, which I highly, highly recommend. And if anyone listening is curious about it, please feel free to reach out, and I can share details about what the experience was like. But in essence, I came into this room where you'd had like 5,000 applicants. They'd filtered it down to like 90 people, and there was these 90 founders or potential founders who were really focused in on wanting to build a business for a particular space. I had come in with a completely different business idea, but I had the flexibility to potentially join something else. My key priorities were finding the right people, then the right problem, and then the right solution. And through that process, I met my CTO, who's a guy called Io. He used to do infrastructure at GitHub. And I met my CEO, Leo, whose background is in partnerships and sales. So he knows the space really, really well, described it to me. And with my background in finance, I was like, I've seen this problem repeated time and time again across so many different industries. I genuinely had like sparks flying in my head because I was like, oh my God, this is such a great opportunity for me to actually expand and diversify the potential customer base that we're going to be dealing with, which to me was very appealing because as an ex-investor, I want to like diversify my risk, right? As an operator, you're kind of putting all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
You're like very geared towards that business. But if you can potentially serve a really broad segment of customers, then you have sort of diversified that risk.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. And when you kind of came into looking at the problems, what were the main challenges that you had in setting up Sook, or I guess the model that you're looking at? How did it kind of change over time? Because you must have had a ideal customer, and you went, actually, it's not this.
Um, yeah, so actually, when we started off, we knew we wanted to be a single source of truth for the partnership space. But how do you earn the right to play becomes a really interesting problem, because once you start doing the validation calls, which I think within our first week, we've done over 40 calls with businesses all the way from like pre-seed to series D to like just coming up to IPO. And there was problems at all stages, but you also have to figure out, okay, who's going to let me test with them? Who's going to give me data in order to integrate? Where can I add value? And ultimately, what our coaches were telling us, which is part of one of the values of being in this accelerator program, was like really hone in on where you can 10x a particular metric for your potential customer. So when we originally started, we started off trying to fix that middle pillar of keeping partners active. So how do you essentially fix for this very sort of gray area where there's a lot of sales reps debating with partnership managers over like deal attribution, for example, because it's like, oh, did I bring them in or did you? And a lot of essentially inexistent or very poor tracking. We were like, oh, well, we could fix this by integrating into their Slack channel and giving them, becoming the single source of truth and giving them a very easy way to search their existing partner database. That was where we actually started, and we were validating that idea with a lot of different potential pilot users, and people were interested in it, but it wasn't something where it was like, this is gonna 10x compared to other players in the ecosystem. It was also
Yeah.
something that potentially could be easily replicated. In fact, we saw it during one of our like validation calls that there was a company who had hired someone who had actually built a very similar framework for their own business. But because in this industry, like tenure is so short, it's like a year to a year and a half is the average lifespan of someone in that role. They'd let that person go. And because there was no one to maintain the like infrastructure, it broke down and then it never got used again. So we were like, okay, well, if people are already dabbling and trying to build this out, we need to do something that's better, something that's harder to achieve in terms of like a business doing it internally themselves, so that we have like the right to exist. And so it was in that sort of like discovery process of realizing, okay, what can we do where it's a bigger leap forward in terms of the value proposition, that we realized, oh, well, like there's this capacity for us to be much, much better at finding than any potential tool that is being used internal to the business and even external to the business, right? Like we've got like they're not a direct competitor, but LinkedIn Sales Nav is a way for prospecting. It's just built on really old tech and really old infrastructure that is like no longer the best in class. So how could we do something better than that?
All right. So essentially, what you've created is is a more innovative sales platform that kind of targets the partnerships more accurately than, for example, an older legacy tech, for example, as like LinkedIn Sales Navigator.
Yeah. So not only are we building, I think the thing with legacy
Mm,
companies, they have all of the data, they have a lot of data, but they struggle to process it. Which I think it's not a new point. I think a lot of people have identified this sort of like issue. And so in order for them to change the way that they're doing things, they almost have to cannibalize their own like revenue and their own product segment.
yeah.
So it gives us an opportunity to build out like a completely different infrastructure for doing the searching, and also something that is geared specifically to partners, right? Like LinkedIn Sales Nav, as it says in the name, is built for salespeople. Whereas we really want to be the go-to solution for partnership managers, because we have a really strong conviction that partnerships is the way for businesses to grow in an exponential rate, right? Like over the past 20 years, the biggest companies that have come to be globally known today have done so actually through partnerships. You've got Microsoft, who over 90% of their reported revenues come from partnerships. You've got Salesforce and HubSpot at over 70%. Like this is a really, really strong channel that if you know how to execute on it, completely changes your revenue potential. But the problem is it's not very accessible to most of the businesses in that like long tail of series A to D, because it's very time consuming and it can be very
Mm,
hard to sort of see the ROI. I think that the typical stat is 90% of the partners in a partner ecosystem will not be generating any revenue at all. So how do you validate, the time you're spending to find all these people, to keep them active, when it's not like a really high hit ratio of them actually sending you deal flow?
yeah.
And those are some of the problems that we're trying to fix for this space.
Yeah. It sounds like essentially a simple way of putting it is kind of like a sales slash partner challenger sort of thing, kind of like a Starling and Monzo were for banking. Is that kind
Yeah,
of
yeah.
what it is essentially?
In a way, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're very much trying to build geared on what has inevitably become the problems of legacy businesses. And I guess in that sense, yeah, Monzo, Revolut, Starling, they all built their infrastructure based on the problems of existing spaces,
Mm.
right? Like I don't need a bank in person. I'm very happy with it to all be on my phone. I really just need to be able to check my balance, make sure everything's doing the right things, have a
Yeah.
really nice interaction with the phone and not have to show up in person anywhere. So I guess in a way we're trying to make it a better experience for partner managers so that it's just more effective and
So
better return on time spent.
yeah, so when it comes to your partner managers, do you have that, I guess we're talking like customer experience, will they be more like for example, a bank, it's more phone orientated. You have your phone and you can do it off your phone, or will there be someone at the end to kind of help them get through and make sure it kind of works out or checking on these things in the kind of long-term future planning of your business?
I mean, long term, the goal is to have a system that is not to use the buzzwords that everyone is using at the moment,
Yeah.
but like it is your co-pilot, it is working alongside you. I guess one of the major differences, which I was having a conversation yesterday with a very large potential customer of the business. It's a very big logo, and I won't jinx it by
No,
saying their name.
don't say anything.
But essentially, what we were discussing in terms of differentiation from like his day to day revolves around going through massive databases that they already have internally, and sometimes going on LinkedIn Sales Nav to like review, but usually they already have the data internally, and it's often already tagged to some other person. And it's just like a very big time sink that is not the most enjoyable part of their day. And when I was showing them how our platform worked, he was immediately just more invested in the process because we have things like enrichments, for example, which allow you to very quickly find additional personalization about an individual. So my favorite enrichment is give me a fun fact about this person. Now, sometimes the fun fact about like an accountant will be some qualification they have, which is maybe not the most fun thing, but it still gives you some frame of reference about who they are and what they've pursued and what their ambition is. But for some people, it gives you a fun fact like back in 2014, they were ranked 40th globally in sailing, which is actually really interesting and something that would have taken you hours of research to do on an individual. But you've suddenly received this information in a couple seconds and it helps
Hmm.
you bridge the gap. And it helps you contact them in a way that's like differentiated to other people, but also just as someone who's doing the like prospecting, it helps make them a real person. Like rather than just seeing like profile after profile after profile of potential like candidate, you're seeing a real individual who has this like life outside of just being a target to for you to outreach to. So I
Hmm.
think that's something that I think is actually really value additive to our users because it just makes their day job more interesting.
Yeah, it's that sort of thing of, instead of having to find the research themselves, they kind of get at the click of a button essentially, and it makes the sales or getting the partnerships easier because they kind of uh, link or collaborate either, point out the similarities they have and why their partnership will work. And when you kind of, is it kind of like the platform you think about it? Is it more, I guess, aesthetically sort of pleasing compared to the old sort of data? So when you, example, will it, let's say, most of the data is probably in spreadsheets. So will it, you have a function that lets the companies put their data into from the spreadsheets into the Circs platform that would then, as a result, be able to put it all together and then say useful things that they can do, or is that kind of
Yes.
more longer term?
I love that you're bringing this up because we literally just launched that feature yesterday.
Okay.
So we do give, and this was based on feedback that we got from our own users, right? They were like, listen, our database of partners is already 16,000 people. But the problem is that actually only 300 of them are actually sending us anything of value. So they have this enormous long tail of potential partners that at some stage in their history they've had a relationship with, but over the last year, 2 years, 3 years, they've had no contact with. And they're like, we don't know who is worth getting back in touch with, who actually we need to completely delete or replace with a new point of contact. And so we've built this solution of importing their contacts for them so that they can bring them in, find something interesting to re-engage over, and do that in a very efficient manner, because obviously you're not going to want to do that with 15,700 people one by one and look for a personalization with each individual. But also in terms of your question around aesthetics, I mean, we've kept it like color waves. It's very simple. Like we're predominantly a very like clean service. And I think the reason why that is because a lot of these platforms, like they kind of grow arms and legs. They become kind of behemoths of features that actually can be really, really distracting, and you don't really know where to start. Whereas for ours, what we're really aiming to do is to be a very straightforward funnel where there's like, if there's something that you need to be able to do in addition, it will be on the page. But like our home nav, it's very clean. There's not like 1,000 tabs and 1,000 sub tabs beneath that. Obviously, the product is growing and there's more features being added on a day-to-day. But we are very conscious of the fact that like, if it's not adding 10x value, if someone else has already tried it, like we don't need to be adding every feature that's out there. We really just want to focus on the features whereby we can create meaningful additional value, because there's so many alternatives for everything else.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. So you don't want to have the platform that is too much on it, then it's kind of like, okay, it's overwhelming and you can't really understand it. And that's one of the challenges, I guess,
It's
legacy
not even that
platforms probably
you
have.
It's not even that you can't understand it, it's that you don't even want to. Like I've been on some demo calls with people where they're like, and then this feature, and then this feature, and I'm like, dude, I already forgot the third one, because like I'm trying to follow what you're saying, but there's so many potential things you want me to do here, and you're telling me, oh, don't worry about it. We've got like an academy for you to go on and spend an hour watching how to integrate and how to properly use all of our features. I'm like, I don't want to spend an hour of my life learning how to use your platform. Your platform should be like straightforward enough that I can do
Yeah.
it step by step, right?
Yeah, I can think of a few. It's an interesting dilemma, I guess you could call it, that you're trying to fix, or pain point, because many of these businesses, if they had it, I guess, if it was simpler, how many hours, or I guess how much time would it save them? And I guess if it's a smaller business, how much would that give them in terms of more revenue? Have you managed to work that out yet, or is that something it's not really, you don't have the data in yet?
Yeah, no, we have definitely got some points to signal what it could mean, right? Because our pipeline of potential companies is so broad, it can be substantially more revenue at the top end, right? But the average time spent, no matter the size of the business, is about 3 to 4 hours per partnership manager per day. So they're spending, like, give it 40 to 50% of their day trying to find the right people. We already know for a fact that we have reduced that down to minutes, but we're also finding that actually, because they can now do and get the right hit rate for, like, I don't know, if they were targeting to get 20, 30, 40 people in one day, they can now do it so much faster that they're actually doing a lot more volume. And so they are inclined to stay on our platform for longer because they just feel more productive. So we have both reduced the total amount of time that they need to spend on a task relative to a particular KPI, but also they find themselves wanting to remain on the platform for longer to actually achieve more. We had a user, we can't have this quote on like pitch deck slides, but I thought it was absolutely fantastic. And our CEO, Leo, shared it across the team, which was that one of our users said, this is great because I can bum around on my bed and still feel really productive, like, which is just like the best piece of feedback ever. That like the platform is doing its job, right? It's
Yeah.
genuinely doing some of the heavy lifting for you. So yeah, I can't even remember where we started with this question. What was your question again?
It was about the pain points and how it would, for example, a smaller business, which spending 3 to 4 hours is
Oh
actually
yeah,
a massive issue. If they it saves them time, that saves them money, which could potentially save them going insolvent because of
yeah.
their that's saving them the time. So the question was to
So
do with how much money would it
it
save
was
them if
like
you,
KPS. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's
yeah.
not just about cost saving. Ultimately, anyone who is in go to market, which
Mhm.
you've got sales, marketing, partnerships, like end of the day, what you care about is generating additional revenue. And for a lot of businesses who are not successfully executing, partnership represents anywhere between like 0% of their like revenue mix up to the most successful in within our ICP are like closer to 30. But if you look at the big companies that have successfully done this that I referenced earlier, like they're hitting 70%, 90% percentage of revenue mix. So really there's this like massive amount of scope for them to increase their revenue from this channel. It's just about giving them the right tools that will allow them to execute properly. And once you've got better revenue generation from this channel, you can then also expand the team. We've got a couple businesses who are still very, very small, like 10-man bands, who they don't have the cost capacity to like hire an entire partnership manager, but actually the CEO of the business can now do a lot of this work effectively themselves because it doesn't take up half their day. Like
Yeah.
you just got way too many other responsibilities. So it is making it more accessible for other businesses that are maybe just smaller in headcount to actually approach.
And platform does your platform use artificial intelligence in any way?
Yes, in a big, big way. So our entire finding like search is built on top of this AI RAG model, which essentially is just a very smart way of accessing the live internet. Like most LLMs, they're all trained on like a particular snapshot of data. So I don't know when ChatGPT was last like updated, but it's up to May of like 2025 or something. Whereas what our system has the capacity of doing is accessing the live internet and like scraping through all the details. So, for example, something that differentiates us versus like your traditional search mechanism on like LinkedIn is LinkedIn will only be able to find a particular role or like figure out that someone's hiring if you say, oh, well, I'm hiring. And you have to self-select as an individual saying, oh, okay, I'm hiring this. Whereas our system can scrape through all the messages and not like private data, it's just public information. But if you have
Mm.
written down on a post, oh, I'm looking to hire someone like that person that you're describing, well, all of a sudden that's public information that we can trace back and say, look,
Mm.
this is someone that is like looking to hire someone in this space and that space. And actually we have users in the recruitment sector who say, you're actually more effective at going through LinkedIn's database than LinkedIn is at going through their own database, which is great point of
So
information for
is the
us.
recruitment thing kind of an accidental kind of bonus you've accidentally clicked onto because the main focus is partnerships. Now you've accidentally, or maybe because it's so efficient, it may be the better term, because it's so efficient, you've actually made it easier for people looking to hire people as well.
Well, so the reason why we originally approached a couple recruitment firms as like, here, please test out our software is because they are in contact with a lot of people all at once, right? They are actually in a way partnership generators because
Mm.
they have a really broad network. They're very effective at leveraging their network and they're very effective at monetizing their network. So as a subsegment of like industry that already participates in partnerships in one way or another, we wanted to sort of sense check, okay, well, how could this potentially fit our model? They're not the primary use case, but it is really interesting to see how different ICPs will use your software. And so far, like it's giving us a lot of additional information about quite how powerful is what we've built so far.
Yeah. And Are you doing like another funding round, or is it kind of at the moment it's just sticking to the Antler program, or what's happening in regards to that funding?
So, so what we've decided to do is do an angel round at the moment, where we
Mhm.
already have a portion of our SCIS committed to some strategic angels who essentially we've reached out to them because they themselves have like really powerful networks either within VC investment spaces or within the like SaaS space, which
Mhm.
is like the most powerful way you can do a raise, right? Because not only are you receiving capital from them, but now they are also incentivized to share their networks and get you additional customers. So in a way,
Yeah.
it's a type of partnership, right? And that will carry us very healthily through into Q1, which is when we aim to do our institutional round. But yeah, the plan is to do our full raise in Q1.
So is it your customers mainly based in the UK, or at the moment it's kind of Europe and a bit more wider? What's your current customer base and what's your target at the moment, target market?
Yes, so the majority of our users are based out of the UK. However, we also have a few coming out of EMEA, particularly France. But our very first completely organic paying customer came out of like the Midwest in the US,
Oh,
which was such an interesting and fantastic moment because we were just like speaking between us. We were like, "Do you know this person? No, do you? Do you?" Like, it was such an exciting moment because we were like, there is literally no link. There is no link between any one of us and this individual. And now we're seeing like a somehow this like organic segment of Americans who are finding out about Suit, which is really, really exciting. And our plan is to expand into the US. So yeah, it's predominantly UK based at the moment, but expansion plans are definitely there, and we will help feed into that movement very soon.
it was great talking to you.
It was great talking to you.